Welcome to our webinar explaining the changes to the Project Management Institute's A Guide to the Project Management Body of Knowledge, PMBOK Guide 6th edition. The PMBOK Guide is PMI's flagship publication and a fundamental resource for effective project management in any industry. The PMBOK Guide 6th edition has been updated to reflect the latest good practices in project management. This webinar will provide an overview of the recent changes and will run about 45 minutes. Our sponsors for this webinar are PM Centers USA and Consult USA. PM Centers USA is an award-winning solutions company that provides specialty staffing, customized training, and consulting services in project management and Agile. We also offer on-demand, virtual, and on-site public and private training programs for project professionals and organizations. In Pittsburgh, we offer a training through our alliance with the Katz Graduate School of Business at the University of Pittsburgh. Our staffing partner, Consult USA, provides IT staffing as a service solutions in addition to traditional staffing services such as contract and contract to hire. Consult USA also offers permanent placement direct hire services to its clients nationwide. Rick Clare, Practice Director of Business Analysis at PM Centers USA, will be the instructor for this module. Rick's professional experience includes work as an Oracle database developer, project manager, business analyst, and trainer. He has managed many major IT projects within both retail and financial services industries. Rick is the editor and a main author of the book Managing Business Analyst, published by the IIBA. He is also a frequent speaker for corporations and organizations, including PMI. Now, let me turn over this module to Rick.
Hi, this is Rick Clare. My topic on the PMBOK Guide 6th edition changes is based on the 6th edition, published in the latter part of 2017. In this webinar, I'll explain the changes in the 6th edition, the rollout plan for the PMP exam, and how to download copies of the PMBOK Guide. Our Project Management Master's Certificate track and all other courses offered by PM Centers USA have been updated to the new version of the PMBOK Guide. We also offer customized private training on subject areas such as estimating and scheduling, again in alignment with the PMBOK Guide. One thing I will not cover in this webinar is the new Agile Practice Guide. PMI partnered with the Agile Alliance to create the new Agile Practice Guide. This guide provides practical guidance geared towards project leaders and team members in adapting to an agile environment in planning and executing projects. The PMBOK Guide 6th edition and Agile Practice Guide complement each other and are packaged together. PMI members downloading their free copy of the PMBOK Guide also get the Agile Practice Guide. So, no surprise, the PMBOK Guide continues to grow with each update. The 5th edition was 589 pages, and the 6th edition is a whopping 756 pages, an increase of almost 30%. It contains lots of great information on project management, so it will continue to be a major resource on how to apply project management to projects. The thickness of the PMBOK Guide has not changed, and that's because a thinner type of paper is being used with the 6th edition. The book was printed utilizing a patented anti-counterfeit print technology designed to prevent unauthorized reproductions. The paper color is gray instead of white, and when copied or scanned, a hidden warning message appears in the background. There are some major changes with the 6th edition. For example, there is more focus on agile, adaptive environments. Over the past few years, more and more stakeholders have asked PMI for content on Agile, and more project teams are using Agile practices, which is confirmed by the Pulse of the Profession research done by PMI. That's why information on Agile is included alongside traditional approaches in the 6th edition. A new chapter was added on the role of the project manager, its focus on leading projects effectively. 2 knowledge areas were renamed. Time management is now schedule management, and human resource management is now resource management. Finally, each knowledge area features 4 new sections: key concepts associated with the specific knowledge area, trends and emerging practices. The PMBOK guide is not intended to lead the industry into new waters. Rather, the guide describes what is considered good practice on most projects, most of the time. Therefore, this section identifies trends and emerging practices that are occurring but not yet practiced on most projects. Tailoring considerations covers areas the PM should consider when tailoring each knowledge area to meet the needs of the organization, environment, stakeholders, and other variables. And finally, considerations for agile adaptive environments. This identifies some of the areas where adaptive approaches may differ from predictive approaches. Earlier versions of the PMBOK guide focused on the traditional waterfall life cycle approach, also called plan-driven or predictive. The waterfall life cycle does the project planning up front, with execution typically done in a single pass. The 6th edition recognizes the multiple life cycle approaches needed in today's project environment and defines other approaches. Iterative is a life cycle approach where the product is developed through a series of repeated cycles, with constant feedback on unfinished work to improve and modify the work. Incremental is a life cycle approach that adds functionality incrementally, which the customer may use immediately. Agile leverages both iterative and incremental life cycle models to refine work items to ensure customer acceptance is achieved, and delivers frequently so the customers can reap benefits sooner. The term adaptive covers any life cycle that is iterative, incremental, and/or agile. And finally, a hybrid life cycle can be used, combining both predictive and adaptive for parts of the project. What's changed in the PMBOK guide? Part 1. Chapters 1 and 2 are major rewrites, and I'll discuss the changes there in upcoming slides. Chapter 3 on the role of the project manager is new. In the 5th edition, Chapter 3 was about project management processes, which is now briefly mentioned in Chapter 1, but covered in detail in the Standard for Project Management. Chapters 4 to 13 are still the same 10 project management knowledge areas, although some have been renamed. Part 2 is the Standard for Project Management of a project. In the 5th edition, this was Annex A1. The information hasn't changed much, but in the 6th edition there are 17 pages of information in the introduction related to projects and project management, project lifecycle, stakeholders, and tailoring project artifacts. Some of this information is a repeat from chapters 1 to 3, but keep in mind the Standard for Project Management is the foundation and framework for the PMBOK guide. The PMBOK guide expands on the information in this standard by providing a more in-depth description of the context, environment, and influences on project management. The appendices have changed dramatically. X1 serves the same purpose. It explains the changes from the prior to the current edition of the PMBOK guide. It's a good summary and worth reading. Appendix X2 still lists the contributors and reviewers. What's gone is the appendix listing interpersonal skills, which in our opinion is too bad. Soft skills are a major reason for the success of project managers. There is some great new information in the 6th edition appendices, and I highly recommend reading these sections. X3 explains in detail the agile, iterative, adaptive, and hybrid project environments. X4 provides a summary on key concepts for the knowledge areas. It's a great review. X5 provides a list of considerations by knowledge area for tailoring processes, inputs, tools, and techniques, and the outputs based on each unique project. X6 provides reference tables, mapping tools, and techniques to the knowledge areas based on categories of data gathering, data analysis, data representation, decision-making, communications, interpersonal, and team skills. And finally, the glossary is still there, a great reference for ensuring common terminology usage. Terms not used in the 6th edition, such as critical chain, have been removed from this. And finally, what's gone? Again, the separate appendix on interpersonal skills. Here is a high-level review of the project management process changes in the 6th edition. the number of project management processes has increased from 47 to 49. There's been one process deleted. 12.4 closed procurements is gone. There have been 3 processes added. 4.4 manage project knowledge, 9.6 control resources, and 11.6 implement risk responses. One process has been moved. Estimate activity resources has been moved from time management to resource management. 7 processes have been renamed, for example by replacing the word control with monitor. I'll talk about these changes in more detail when I address the changes in each knowledge area. Okay, so let's take a look at Chapter 1. Chapter 1 was a major rewrite, and even if you have your PMP, this is a good chapter to read. Chapter 1 now includes information on why organizations do projects. To summarize the why in a few short words, projects drive change and enable business value creation. There is also a table, 1-1, which provides examples of factors that lead to the creation of a project, definitely worth looking at. The specific factors include new technology, competitive forces, material issues, political changes, market demands, and so on. New information contained in Chapter 1 of the 6th edition includes reasons for doing projects, project and development life cycles, project phases and phase gates, high-level overview on selecting development approaches from predictive, iterative, incremental, and adaptive based on the nature of the project, and information on business documents such as business case and benefits management plans. Chapter 2 was also a major rewrite. Information still remains on organizational process assets, plans, processes, policies, procedures, and knowledge bases specific to and used by the performing organization. Enterprise environmental factors, conditions not under the control of the project team that influence, constrain, or direct the project. Enterprise environmental factors can be internal or external to the organization. Internal examples include resource availability and employee capability. External examples include marketplace conditions and legal restrictions. The 6th edition covers governance management elements included in key functions of general management and organizational structure types. The 5th edition, Chapter 2, did discuss organizational structures, but only considered matrix, functional, and projectized. The 6th edition considers other varieties such as organic, virtual, and hybrid. By the way, the projectized word is gone in the 6th edition. Now it's called a project-oriented organizational structure. Chapter 3. This is a new chapter. In the 5th edition, the role of the project manager was covered on just 2 pages in Chapter 1. Chapter 3 in the 5th edition covered project management processes, which included the 5 process groups: initiating, planning, executing, monitoring, controlling, and closing. Project management process interactions, and a table that showed the alignment of the 47 processes with both knowledge areas and process groups. That table can still be found in the 6th edition on page 25 in Chapter 1. And the information on the 5 process groups is briefly mentioned in Chapter 1, but covered in detail in the Standard for Project Management. The 6th edition has 18 pages of information on the role of the project manager and includes the project manager's sphere of influence, competencies, a comparison of team management and team leadership, and the role of the project manager when performing project integration. This new chapter contains lots of great information and is something every project manager should take time to read. Here are the 7 processes for project integration management. The only change is the new process called Manage Project Knowledge, which is defined as the process of using existing knowledge and creating new knowledge to achieve the project's objectives and contribute to organizational learning. A good example is the use of lessons learned, which should include challenges, problems, what worked and what didn't work on the project. Project integration management. Figure 4-1 on page 71 shows the inputs, tools, and techniques and outputs for each integration management process. A caution, there are many changes from the 5th edition. That's true for every single project management practice. You'll also find data analysis and interpersonal and team skills showing up frequently as tools and techniques for PM processes. Under trends is an interesting statement. Project managers are being called upon to initiate and finalize the project, such as the project business case development and benefits management. That just reinforces what we've been saying for years now. The project manager is evolving to also become a business manager. In the section on Agile adaptive considerations, project manager expectations do not change in an adaptive environment, but detailed product planning and delivery is delegated to the team. As noted, the Agile Practice Guide was released with the PMBOK Guide, and I suggest again that you learn more about Agile practices by reading it. On the surface, it doesn't look like scope management had any significant changes. It's true the 6 processes did not change, but be careful, there are many changes to the inputs, tools and techniques, and outputs. The role of business analysis is covered in more detail in the 6th edition, and reference is made to 2 documents, Requirements Management, a Practice Guide, and Business Analysis for Practitioners, a Practice Guide. I recommend that you read the key concepts, trends, and emerging practices, tailoring considerations and considerations for agile adaptive environments on pages 131 to 133. The difference from a scope management perspective is, with predictive projects, the scope baseline for the project is developed early in the project, and change control is used for changes afterwards. With adaptive project, the scope evolves over the life of the project. The collect requirements, define scope, and create work breakdown structure are repeated for each iteration. This knowledge area was renamed from time management to schedule management. The reason is that project managers do not manage time, they define and manage the project schedule. The project management process, estimate activity resources, was moved to resource management, which makes sense because estimating resources really is part of resource management. As with the other knowledge areas, there are many changes to the inputs, tools and techniques, and outputs. Refer to figure 6-1 on page 174. I suggest reading key concepts, trends and emerging practices, tailoring considerations, and considerations for agile adaptive environments. Trends discusses iterative scheduling with a backlog for use on agile projects and on-demand scheduling used in a Kanban system. This chapter also incorporates some agile concepts into the develop schedule and control schedule processes. For example, figure 620 on page 216 shows the relationship between product vision, release planning, and iteration planning. Figure 6-24 shows an iteration burn down chart used as a tool and technique for controlling schedule on an agile project. Finally, the critical chain method was dropped as a develop schedule tool and technique. It was sort of a fad that really didn't make much sense as a whole thing. Many good ideas came from critical chain, but they were easily incorporated into other methodologies. A key premise with critical chain is that the critical path method doesn't consider resource constraints. This isn't a true statement at all if you resource load your schedule. Critical chain also advocated the use of buffers, which is just another name for contingency, and something most experienced schedulers were using long before critical chain came up. Project cost management is the other knowledge area, along with scope management, that did not have any changes to the processes and/or the process names. As I've mentioned with the other knowledge areas already covered, there are changes to the inputs, tools and techniques, and outputs, so check out figure 7-1 on page 232. Let's look at some key concepts, trends, and agile considerations for project cost management. Under key concepts, It states that cost management can include predicting and analyzing the prospective financial performance of the project's product. In these cases, knowledge of financial management techniques such as ROI, NPV, IRR are needed. It notes the expansion of earned value management to include the concept of earned schedule, but this topic is not covered in the PMBOK guide. If you want to learn more about earned schedule, go to www.earnedschedule.com. This site is devoted to the use of earned schedule. In Agile considerations, there is mention of lightweight estimation techniques to generate a fast, high-level forecast of costs. This is needed when there's a high degree of uncertainty and the scope isn't fully defined. Also noted in Agile considerations, detailed estimates are only done for short-term planning horizons, such as a Scrum sprint. On projects where there is high variability due to a lack of understanding around requirements and scope, and where there is a strict budget, the scope and schedule have to be adjusted to stay within the cost constraints. Project Quality Management. Notice that 8.2 was renamed. Most organizations have a quality assurance group, which is outside of the project. Research done by PMI indicated that many of the quality tools and techniques identified previously are not widely used on projects, so it was felt that manage quality was more descriptive compared to perform quality assurance. The other interesting change in the chapter is that in the 5th edition, the 7 basic quality tools were covered as a means to solve quality-related problems, and the 5th edition was updated to be consistent with the American Society for Quality. The 7 basic quality tools are cause and effect diagrams, flowcharts, check sheets, Pareto charts, histograms, control charts, and scatter diagrams. The 6th edition covers all 7, but drops all reference to the 7 basic tools of quality. I'm not sure why this was done if they were covering the same material. The front end of this chapter on quality management was a major rewrite. The discussion on precision and accuracy was dropped. I'm not sure why, since these are important quality concepts. The 5 levels of increasingly effective quality management was added, which is interesting. The 5 levels are: let the customer find the defects. Number 2, detect and correct before deliverables are sent to the customer, defined as quality control. Number 3 is examine and correct the process. 4 is incorporate quality into the planning and design of the product and project. And finally, create a culture committed to quality in process and products. The name of this knowledge area was changed from Project Human Resource Management to just Project Resource Management, which makes more sense. That's because humans are not the only resources used on projects, and in prior PMBOK guide versions, it left a hole. Project resources can include materials, equipment, supplies, and even facilities, so resources are more than just people. Since the knowledge area was changed, it makes sense to move estimate activity resources from the project schedule management knowledge area to the project resource management. Also note acquire project team, which implied forming the project team, was renamed to just acquire resources, which is more inclusive. The word project was dropped from develop team and manage team since it was limiting. You can have team members who are not direct part of the project but still need to be managed. For example, a security specialist, maybe a database administrator, may have a minor role and they're not part of the core project team, but they still must be managed. Finally, control resources was added, which just makes sense because you have control schedule, control costs, control quality, control procurements, but not for resources. This resolves the oversight. The front end of Chapter 9 was expanded, and I suggest reading pages 307 to 312. This section provides a concise summary of key concepts for project resource management. In the section on trends and emerging practices, there are some interesting items. Emotional intelligence was finally added to the PMBOK guide. Research suggests that project teams that succeed in developing emotional intelligence are more effective. Our courses on leadership and interpersonal skills have always included a module on emotional intelligence. Our experience working with clients mirrors PMI's research finding. Teams with high emotional intelligence are more likely to be successful. Trends also mention self-organizing teams due to the increase in using agile approaches. I personally don't like the word self-organizing because the project manager or the scrum master works with the resource managers to acquire project team members. That to me is organizing. Agile teams, in my opinion, are self-managing rather than self-organizing. Trends also acknowledges the rising use of virtual distributed teams. We added a one-day course this year on how to develop a high-performance virtual team because we're seeing a big increase in the use of virtual teams, even with Agile. Finally, in the section on Agile considerations, there is a statement about planning for physical and human resources in much less predictable in projects with high variability. In my opinion, that may be true, but in many cases the project team is assembled, the schedule or number of iterations is locked down, and it's the scope that has the variability. The team charter was added as an output of plan resource management. This is something we've been advocating in our courses and is an important project document since it establishes the team values, agreements, and operating guidelines. As mentioned earlier in this webinar, Appendix X3 from the PMBOK Guide 5th edition on interpersonal skills was eliminated. However, that doesn't mean that those skills are no longer important. Interpersonal and team skills are a tool and technique for acquire, develop, manage, and control resources. Also new in the PMBOK Guide 6th edition is the new process, control resources. The purpose of this process is ensuring the physical resources needed for the project are available as planned, monitoring the planned resources versus actual resource utilization, and taking corrective action as needed. There were no major changes to Chapter 10 on Project Communications Management. However, note that the process Control Communications was changed to Monitor Communications in the 6th edition. Communication indicates the act of communicating, such as a meeting or a listening. Communications with an S indicates the artifacts of communication, such as emails. Because it's not possible to control how and when people communicate, the name of the process, Control Communications, was changed to Monitor Communications. As with the other knowledge areas, there are many changes in the inputs, tools and techniques, and outputs. So be sure to check out Figure 10-1 on page 360. A good addition to all three processes is interpersonal and team skills as a tool and technique. Again, stressing the importance of interpersonal skills even though Appendix X3 was removed. Effective project communications are an important concept of project success, so this is a good chapter to read for ideas. One example is the 5 C's of written communications: correct grammar and spelling, concise, elimination of excess words, clear purpose, coherent logical flow of ideas, and controlling the flow of words and ideas. Many project managers are not very good at communications. We recognize this and have a one-day course on effective communication techniques, and it's one of our more popular courses. Project risk management has one new process in the 6th edition. Plan risk responses is the process of developing options and actions to enhance opportunities and reduce threats to project objectives. In the 5th edition, the process control risks included implementation of the risk response plans, but that's a bit of a stretch, and the 6th edition has a new process for implementing these risk response strategies, which is part of the executing process group. Also note that the process control risks is now monitor risks. That's because risks are uncertain events and they can't really be controlled. They can, however, be monitored, thus the change from control to monitor. As with the other knowledge areas, there are many changes to the inputs, tools and techniques, and outputs. So be sure to check out Figure 11-1 on page 396, which shows the 7 risk management processes. One change in the 6th edition was an increased emphasis on overall project risk. Prior editions of the PMBOK guide just focused on individual project risks and didn't really address the overall project risk as a whole, arising from all sources of uncertainty. So this is a good change. We've always covered overall project risk in our classes using what we called a PRAM, a Project Risk Assessment module. The 6th edition also covers strategies for overall project risk, which are avoid, exploit, transfer, share, mitigate, enhance, or accept. So it's the same list of strategies used for the individual risks. In the Trends and Emerging Practices section, 2 new concepts are covered. The first is non-event risks, which can be variability risks, such as productivity may be above or below the assumed rate. The second is ambiguity risk, which is uncertainty about what might happen in the future, such as future developments in regulatory frameworks. The other trend is project resilience, which covers unknowable unknowns, risks that can only be identified after they've occurred. This requires the project to have the right amount of cost and schedule contingency, flexible project processes, and empowered project teams, and frequent reviews of early warning signs. Also note there is a new risk response strategy named Escalate, which can be used for either threats or opportunities. This recognizes that some risks can be outside the scope of the project, or the proposed response exceeds the project manager's authority. For example, I had a project in New Jersey for a pharmaceutical company that required approval by the Department of Community Affairs. Normal review and approval time was 1 to 3 months, and we needed an expedited approval. There was nothing I could do, so we had the company CEO contact the New Jersey governor, who he personally knew, to get his help in having the DCA do the review approval process in 2 weeks. The information in Chapter 12 on project procurement management was updated to reflect a more global perspective. Many projects are conducted with stakeholders in various countries, or by organizations with offices in multiple countries. The one major change in the 6th edition was the elimination of the process close procurements. That's because market research done by PMI shows that very few project managers actually close out these procurements. That's usually done by a person in contracts procurement or in the legal department. Information from the 5th edition about evaluating completed deliverables and comparing them to the contract was absorbed into control procurements. Information from the 5th edition on administrative, communications, and records was moved to the integration management process, close, project, or phase. As stated with the other knowledge areas, there are many changes to the inputs, tools and techniques, and outputs. So look at figure 12-1 on page 460. There is some new and very good material in this chapter, so if you're involved with procurements, take the time to read it. For example, there's a new output for planned procurement management called Procurement Strategy. It's in section 12.1.3.2, and it discusses delivery methods, contract payment types, and procurement phases. There are 2 changes to the 4 project stakeholder management processes. Plan stakeholder management was changed to plan stakeholder engagement, which is in keeping with current research and practice. Note that process 13.3 is called Manage Stakeholder Engagement, so the focus is really the engagement of stakeholders, not trying to manage them. Also, project managers don't really have the ability to control stakeholders, so control stakeholder engagement was changed to monitor stakeholder engagement. The section on trends states there is a broader definition of stakeholder, which to me shouldn't be new. The 6th edition states it includes regulators, lobby groups, environmentalists, financial organizations, the media, and even people who just believe they are stakeholders. Our courses have always expounded on this point about ensuring that all stakeholders are identified. Also, there's a new term used in trends called co-creation, which is consulting and getting input from stakeholders who are most affected by the work. There are many other minor changes to this chapter. For example, under Tools and Techniques for Identify Stakeholders, a common tool used is the Power Interest Grid. The 6th edition added other tools, such as the Stakeholder Cube and the Salience Model. Here's some important information on the credential exams, coinciding with the release of the PMBOK Guide 6th edition, along with the Agile Practice Guide. The PMP exam and the Agile Certified Practitioner Certification exams will change on March 26, 2018. The Certified Associate in Project Management will change on May 21st, 2018. The PMI Risk Management Professional and Scheduling Professional certification exams are not changing. The 6th edition publication did not significantly change either risk or scheduling, so no exams updates were needed. PDF version of both the PMBOK Guide 6th edition and Agile Practice Guide are available to PMI members in good standing. Go to the PMI website, pmi.org, and log in. First step, place your cursor on the PMBOK Guide and Standards and click. A drop-down menu will appear. Click on the link, blue letters. You will be redirected to the screen shown here. Move your mouse to the right side of the screen and use the scroll bar to get to the bottom of the page. Click on Download. You'll be taken to this screen where you'll need to input your PMI.org password, shown as Step 5. Once you do that, the final step, 6, is to click on the Download button. You can then save the PDF file to your computer. Note that this Adobe file is password protected, so you're going to need to input your password every time you open the document. The update from the 5th to the 6th edition added lots of new content, especially around agile approaches. This is another step in the continuous improvement in a guide to the project management body of knowledge. Remember that the PMBOK Guide is only one reference in the full project management body of knowledge. There are many other pertinent publications offered by PMI, along with books and articles written by experienced project management practitioners from around the world. The PMP exam, along with the PMI ACP exam, will change March 26th, but probably won't significantly change. The PMI exam will undoubtedly have new questions related to the adaptive approach. This concludes the webinar. Thank you very much for listening. I'm going to turn it back over to Angela now.
Thanks, Rick. This concludes our webinar on changes to the PMBOK Guide 6th edition. For those of you in need of additional learning support, please visit our website to view our public training schedules and on-demand offerings. For organizations that want more information on the services of PM Centers USA, call us to set up a discovery session to talk with our team about your needs. Thank you for listening to our webinar. We hope that you found Rick's presentation to be beneficial in helping you understand both the changes made to the PMBOK Guide 6th edition and the reasons behind the changes. If you have any questions regarding the changes to the PMBOK Guide 6th edition, please email us at training@pmcentersusa.com and one of our subject matter experts will provide an answer for you.